So leading up to the question, Dr. Harch, Robert's coming in, you see his condition, you know what he just went through. What was going through your mind and what was your approach?
Well, what's going through my mind is that here we have another chance to make a potentially huge impact on some child's life. And that I always have to tell the story behind it. I had always wanted to be a surgeon. When I was in medical school, that's all I was going to do was be a surgeon. And usually what we do is in medical school, when you identify what specialty or whatever path you want to take for your future career in medicine, you then maximize your elective time in that special track. And so you take those electives earlier and you reserve, there are 5 basic clerkships that you had to take. And you reserve the one you know you're not going to go into to the very last semester in medical school. For me, it was pediatrics.
God had another plan.
He did. I didn't know about it. It took a real knock on the,
A literal knock on the head.
Yeah. But so I decided I wanted to actually not just put it to the end. I wanted to forego it. And instead of pediatrics, just do the surgical subspecialties. So I went to the dean of students because you have to get permission to alter, your schedule and so on. I sat down with him. It was the greatest faux pas ever. The dean of students is a famous pediatrician. So I went and I sat down and I go, look, Dr. Seidel, I'm never going to be a pediatrician. I mean, pediatrics is just lost on me. It's not part of me. I want to be a surgeon. And really, the pediatric basic clerkship is going to be a waste of my time. It's really going to be wasted on me. And I'd like to know if I could just eliminate that and do 2 surgical subspecialty rotation. Oh, he started laughing. He thought that was the funniest thing. And then he goes, no. And I said, oh, he goes, do you know what I do? I go, no. I mean, I hadn't even bothered looking. I knew his name. I knew all this famous doctor, but I didn't know what his specialty, what he made his mark. And he goes, I want you to go over into the hospital on the pediatric ward. And I want you to look in every house staff's coat pocket. And they're going to have Dr. Seidel's house staff manual of how to treat emergency cases, pediatrics, medicine, all the rest of this stuff. And he said, look, he goes, you need all of this and you have to do this. And I thought, oh, okay, begrudgingly. So I did it. And here I found myself now years later, after the very first child with cerebral palsy that we treated during the investigative years in the 1990s. And this little boy, 4.5 years old, just a floppy Pinocchio-like little kid, had no tone, couldn't walk, just would sit in kind of a slumped over position, drooling, couldn't eat, no speech. And after a number of months of hyperbaric treatment, he was walking with fingertip support for balance. I was beside myself. It was like, look what just happened. And what it dawned on me, and what I ended up calling up Richard Neubauer, one of my mentors, and telling him, oh my God, it is treatment of neurologically injured children that will lead the way of hyperbaric medicine and allow this expansion into the future and the awareness of what this therapy can do. And the more children I saw, it just dawned on me, a lot of what the doctors are going to pediatrics. They don't want adult medicine because, they kind of have a feeling that what they have and their diseases, they have, a lot of it is self-induced and so on, but you can't have as great an impact as you can with a child who's got their whole life ahead of them. And so it just increasingly became aware, the more and more of these children I see, the lives that they potentially lead as a result of injury, it's just unimaginable. And the lives that their parents lead, especially the mothers, is just, it can't be appreciated. If you can make a change in that, my God, you've got a whole life in front of them that you potentially change. So now here comes in Robert, who's had this injury, and looking at him like, here is another chance to potentially alter the whole trajectory of his life. Couldn't predict it, but as we started and what happened, and see a decrease in tone and the spasticity that is so common to almost every neurological injury in children, every ischemic hypoxic injury, low blood flow, low oxygen, or no blood flow, no oxygen, is spasticity, high tone, and is one of the most responsive malfunctions or deficits to hyperbaric therapy. And so when you look at the pictures, you only see this in textbooks, in gymnastics, or with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the connective tissue disorder with lax joints like Houdini and so on, where you can bend and contort and so on. No, he didn't have that. This is severe spasticity bent in a complete C configuration to where the back of his head is almost touching his rear end. I mean, it was just, and within a couple of treatments, this child has straightened out. And the 2 treatments.
2 treatments. He was straight.
3 or 4, he is smiling and more animated and has awakened. I mean, you want to shout this from the highest mountains, the potential for this. Is that the same for every child with this? No, it's not. Part of that is a timing issue. If we get to it sooner, the potential is even much greater. He was lucky in that he had more injury non-permanent. In other words, and it's well known, brain cells can be stunned and injured such that metabolically they don't function, but they are not dead. And this is largely what we're doing with at least the first few treatments. And then you're stimulating regrowth of tissue and all. And that's what happened here. I couldn't predict it, but I knew we had a potential to do it. And when it happened, it was like, oh God, I mean, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world to witness this, be a part of it, to see this. I mean, I go home every night and we thank God that we're in this position, that we are able to do this, that this is possible. I mean, it's just a blessing. And look what's happened to go look at that picture. You look at him today. He's not done. Things are still a work in progress and all, but this is a long way from, euthanize him to spare the parents. Him. It's an overwhelming, it's just a shocking realization of how his injury is treated. And he's not an exception.
No.
This is so common. So common.
But parents don't know about it.
No. And especially the young parents who are somewhat naive, and if they don't have parents and others to help guide them, they get channeled more into this organ donation, euthanasia, etc.